The Alice killings remain, to this day, one of the strangest and unsolved serial killings in Japan. From 1999 to 2005, a series of 5 killings took place. The 5 killings might have been completely different if it's not for the calling card that was left in each crime scene. He would leave a playing card at each scene in an obvious location that had Alice written on it in the victim's blood. The first victim was Sasaki Megumi, a 29-year-old owner of a restaurant. Those who had described her as a headstrong woman with a short temper and a sharp tongue when dealing with her employees. She was known by her customer for her fine cooking and her dedication to her job. Outside her job, Megumi was very social and often went to parties. It was after one such party that she went missing. She decided to walk home from her friend's house, seeing that she was only a block away from home, and she was a bit too drunk to drive. But several people offered to drive her home, but she shrugged it off. She was leaving the party at exactly 1 in the morning, and this is the last time she was seen alive. The next morning, a couple walked to the woods about a mile from Megumi's house, saw a large amount of blood on the overgrown, unused path. Curious, they followed it, and that's where they found Megumi's body. She had been torn apart, her parts impaled on various tree branches, and the couple called the police, of course. It was the police that found the playing card crammed into Megumi's mouth. It was a jack of spades, which had the word Alice written on it, as previously mentioned. There was no fingerprints or any DNA to be found. There was vomit on the scene, but the female of the couple admitted it was hers. Yamane Akio was a barely known singer in a band that never played anything more than the various bars and community functions. His friends described him as a kind-hearted man who would never raise his voice off stage. After his death, his band fell apart, not having the heart to find a new singer. Akio was abducted from his apartment on February 11, 2001. His bandmates were the last people to see him alive, as he had practiced with them early in that day. That night, his girlfriend came home to visit him and was surprised to find his house empty. Within days, a missing person report was filed and the search for him began. On the security footage of the apartment, a hooded figure could be seen entering through the side of the door and leaving with a large garbage bag that bulged strangely. This strange appearance was never accounted for, and no one saw the strange man in person. This was widely believed to be the killer, but his face was never shown, and there appears to be some doubt. The following week, the owner of the bar, Yoshida, was opening for the day, and that's when he met a grisly sight. Slumped on the table was Akio's body. His vocal cords had been ripped from his throat, and he had been shot in the head. His Alice card was the King of Diamonds, and was found clutched in his hands, along with his ruined vocal cords. A teen girl, Kai Sakura, had her whole life ahead of her. She was a sweet girl and was well loved by her classmates and her relatives. She wanted to go to college to be a fashion designer and was a week away from graduating high school when she was abducted. Sakura's family went frantic trying to find her, and the whole town was combed for the lost girl. Her body was found 2 days later, buried in a shallow grave. It didn't seem the killer wanted her hidden. On the contrary, he had marked her grave with the Alice playing card, the Queen of Clubs. It had been taped to a stick and stuck on the top of the grave. Sakura's body was horribly mutilated. Her eyes had been carved from her body, her skin was flayed, and her mouth had been carved open. A crown had been sewed onto her head, likely when she was still alive. No sexual crime has been committed either pre or post mortem. Along with Sakura's body was a note, written in a straggly handwriting. It contained many disjointed phrases, some of which are unreadable. Death is a distorted dream. She will rule forever, and ha ha, those which die are the lucky ones. Were various phrases that had been written, among others. A match to the handwriting was never found. These two were the last of the killings. and the least gruesome. Hayato and Hina were siblings, and very close. Hina was the elder sister and was very stubborn. Her younger brother, Hayato, was very smart and had skipped a grade, causing him to be the same class as his beloved sister. The two rarely fought, as most siblings tended to do. The two were found dead in their beds on April 4, 2005. The cause of death was a lethal injection. The children's bedroom window was open, and it was deduced that the killer snuck in quietly enough to kill the other two without waking them up, then snuck back out. Each child held half of the Ace of Hearts playing card that, when put together, spelled out the word Alice. One very smudged footprint was found on the carpet, but close inspection was made impossible by the severe damage done to the print. This was the only piece of evidence, other than the playing cards, left at the scene. A year later, the mother of Hayato and Hina committed suicide out of grief. Their father, who is still alive to this day, is going through extensive therapy to get over the death of his entire family. At this moment, he is extremely depressed and heavily medicated. Shortly after the death of the Oshiro siblings, a man named Suzuki Yuto was arrested for the murders. He was a bum with mental problems who claimed to not remember where he was at the time of any of these murders. Most damning of all, he had been seen wearing a coat that belonged to Yamane Aikyo. A bit of blood on the sleeve tested positive to be his. Yuto, who was raving at this point, claimed that a demon black man with no face had given him the coat. Yuto was eventually released when the homeless shelter 5 miles from the Kai household claimed to have Yuto in their files for the night of Sakura's murder. Since there was no way for him to get into where they abducted and back without being noticed, Yuto was released. On April 30th, 2008, a producer known as Yagumi P uploaded his first song in Nico video called Alice of Human Sacrifice. This song is believed to be based off the Alice killings. It tells the story of a little dream who lured people into its world, and then goes on to tell the story of each Alice. The song has a few parallels with each killings. The first Alice is Miko, was trapped in the woods, which is where Megumi's body was found. The second Alice, as Kaito, was a singer who was shot by a madman. The third Alice, as Hatsune Mikumi, was well beloved. The third Alice, that was Hatsune Miku, was well loved, became the country's queen, and was taken over by a distorted dream. The fourth Alice, dedicated to Rin and Lin Kakamin, was a pair of twins regarded as one Alice. They are described to be as a stubborn big sister and intelligent younger brother. It also speaks on how that they have yet to awaken, a possible reference for them dying in their sleep. In addition, the suits of the cards found in each body was also mentioned. Yagumi P has not stated for sure if it's the song that are related to the Alice killings, but it is widely assumed.